There's a moment I'll never forget when I stood behind a cracked doorframe, watching my wife, Mia, in the arms of another man. Not just any man. He was strong, confident, and completely unlike me. His name was Jamal. I had agreed to this, suggested it, even thinking it would fix the growing silence in our marriage. I told myself it was about exploring a fantasy, but deep down, I was just afraid of losing her. What I didn't realize was that night would become a mirror, showing me everything I had ignored about myself, our love, and the man I had become. It was the most romantic, painful, electrifying, and terrifying night of my life. And now, I'm finally ready to talk about it. Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed to this channel. Your support gives voice to stories that matter. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and don't forget to like and comment to keep these stories alive. Your feedback helps bring more inspiring, emotional, and dramatic life experiences to light. Let's keep telling the truth, even when it's hard. My name is David Carter. I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. If you saw me mowing the lawn or smiling next to my wife at a backyard cookout, you'd probably think I had it all together. House paid off, 2 decent cars, a woman so beautiful it made people do double takes. And for a while, we did have it all, at least on the surface. My wife, Mia, and I met in college. I was the quiet one, majoring in finance, allergic to chaos. She was bold, magnetic, and had this way of laughing like the world belonged to her. When she walked into a room, people noticed. When she looked at me, I felt seen in a way I never had before. We built a life together. She taught middle school art. I managed wealth portfolios. We made love with the lights on. We shared playlists and podcasts. And we made each other promise, back then, that we'd never grow apart. But somewhere between my overtime hours and her anxiety attacks, the silence crept in. I wish I could point to a specific moment, the day things changed. But it was more like a slow fading. The hugs became routine. Her eyes didn't light up anymore when I walked into the room. I stopped asking her how her day went because I already knew the answer. Fine. Sex became rare. Not because we didn't care, but because it felt like a chore. Something scheduled, rushed, and empty. I started feeling invisible. I think she did too. It was during one of our late-night talks, the kind you only have when the TV's off and there's nothing left to hide, when I said it. Maybe we should try something different, something new. She blinked. Like what? I shrugged, tried to sound casual. I don't know. Maybe be more open. About fantasies, desires. Maybe that'll help us find our way back. I remember how long she looked at me. Not in disgust or surprise, but almost like she'd been waiting for me to ask. And that's when she said his name. Jamal. I felt a strange jolt in my stomach. Who's Jamal? He's someone I met at the art exhibit last month. He volunteers there. We talked about paintings, colors, life. He's different, confident, kind of magnetic. I felt something when I was around him. Nothing happened, but I thought about him afterward. She looked down, embarrassed. I should have been angry, but I wasn't. I was curious, maybe even jealous. But more than anything, I felt awake. You ever think about him like that? I asked. Her silence answered the question. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding with thoughts I didn't know how to name. What if letting this happen could bring us closer? What if this was the jolt we needed? Or what if it broke us? Over the next few days, I couldn't stop picturing them together. Mia, in her soft silk robe. Jamal, with his deep voice and quiet strength. The more I imagined it, the more twisted my emotions became. Excitement, insecurity, fear, desire. Mia and I talked more openly than we had in months. We laid out rules, boundaries, but under all the logic and planning, there was something deeper at play, something I didn't want to admit yet. I wasn't just inviting another man into our bedroom. I was inviting the truth into our marriage. And once that door opened, there'd be no turning back. When Jamal knocked on our door, the air in the house changed. It was a quiet Saturday evening. No wind, no birds. Just this heavy stillness that made every sound echo louder. Mia had spent the whole morning cleaning the living room, lighting candles, fluffing pillows, like it was some sacred preparation. I hadn't seen her that focused in months. I sat on the edge of the couch in my neatly pressed shirt, my palms sweating. Mia walked down the stairs slowly in a burgundy wrap dress, the silk hugging her curves. She looked stunning, the kind of beautiful that knocked the breath out of me. I hadn't seen her like that in so long. Not because she'd changed, but because I'd stopped looking. When the doorbell finally rang, Mia and I locked eyes. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, even though every muscle in my body was screaming in confusion. "Yeah, let's just see where it goes." She opened the door, and there he was. Jamal stood tall and confident, wearing a crisp black button-down and dark jeans. His skin was smooth, his jaw strong, and his smile carried this quiet charm. Not arrogant, not flashy, just sure. He held a bottle of wine and a bouquet of white lilies. "Mia," he said warmly, "thanks for having me." She smiled. "Thanks for coming." They hugged briefly. Then his eyes turned to me. "And you must be David." I stood, forcing a calm expression. "Yeah." "Welcome." He offered his hand. His grip was firm, but not overbearing. I could already feel the comparison starting in my head. His posture, his voice, his calmness. It was like he didn't have to try. We sat down in the living room and poured wine. Mia took the seat beside Jamal. I sat across from them, my heart pounding under the weight of what we were doing. The conversation started light: art, books, travels. I listened more than I spoke, watching how easily Jamal made Mia laugh. How her body leaned just slightly toward him. I remembered that version of her. Open, curious, vibrant. She hadn't looked that alive around me in a long time. Maybe that's why I didn't stop it. After a while, Jamal glanced at me and asked, "So, can I ask, how did this come about?" This idea. Mia looked at me. It was my turn. I cleared my throat. Honestly, we'd been disconnected. For a while. I thought maybe exploring something different, something honest, might bring us back together. Instead of pretending everything's fine. He nodded. I respect that. Most people just avoid it until it dies. There was silence after that. Then Mia placed her hand gently on his thigh. It was subtle, but the message was loud. "Would you excuse me?" I said, standing. "David," Mia started, but I shook my head. "I am okay. I'll be upstairs." She didn't stop me. I think a part of her wanted me to go. I walked up to the guest bedroom, the one with the small, open view of the downstairs through the railing. I stood just behind the half-open door, heart racing, ears straining to hear everything. Jamal and Mia sat close now, her hand still on his leg, his arms slowly draped around her. They were whispering, laughing softly. Then came the moment that twisted my insides. He leaned in, kissed her, and she kissed him back. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't aggressive. It was gentle, deep, like two people who had already dreamed about it 100 times before. My throat tightened. I didn't know what emotion to name. Was it pain? Lust? Jealousy? All I knew was I couldn't look away. Her fingers slid into his hair. His hand traced the line of her jaw. Their silhouettes pressed together, shadows dancing against the flickering candlelight. My heart pounded in my ears. Part of me wanted to run downstairs, to rip him off her, to remind her that I was her husband. But another part of me, the darker part, wanted to see more. I needed to know what she looked like when she truly felt desired. Needed to see the fire that I couldn't spark anymore. I stayed frozen behind the door, watching, listening, silently falling apart. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. "I've never felt like this before." The words sliced through me, like a blade between the ribs. And yet, I didn't leave. I stayed in the shadows, trembling, ashamed of the part of me that wanted to be broken, that needed to see the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Eventually, the lights dimmed further. Their shapes melted into each other. The soft rustle of clothes, her low moan, his deep breath. I turned away. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the guest bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. Every sound from downstairs echoed like a thunderclap in my head. The soft creak of the floor, her muffled voice, the distant rhythm of two bodies moving in sync. I was no longer just a husband. I was a witness. Morning crept in through the blinds, pale and unforgiving. I waited until the house was quiet before going back downstairs. The wine glasses still sat on the coffee table, half full. One of Mia's heels lay on its side, near the couch. A faint scent lingered in the air, earthy, warm, unfamiliar. I picked up the shoe and stared at it for a long time. Then I heard the shower running upstairs. He was still here. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity? Masochism? Some broken part of me needed to face it. So I knocked lightly on the door of our master bathroom. The water stopped. A moment passed. Then I heard his voice, deep calm. "Yeah. It's David," I said. Another pause. "Come in." I opened the door. Steam filled the room like a fog. Jamal stood by the sink in just a towel, drying his face. His body was cut like something out of sculpture. Broad shoulders, defined chest, dark skin glistening with drops of water. But it wasn't just his build that struck me. It was his stillness. Like nothing rattled him. He didn't flinch, didn't panic. He looked at me through the mirror and nodded. "Morning." I nodded back. "Yeah." He turned around, resting both hands on the counter. "Didn't think I'd see you this morning. I couldn't sleep." He gave a small, understanding smile. I figured. I studied him. This man who had just touched my wife in ways I hadn't in months. And yet, there was no smugness. No arrogance. Just presence. "I want to understand something," I said. He waited. "Why did you say yes?" His expression didn't change. "Because Mia asked, and because I saw something in her eyes that night at the gallery." "What was it?" He met my gaze. Hunger. Not just for sex, for life. Like she'd been asleep for years. His words hit hard, but they weren't cruel. They were honest, and it made me hate him a little less and myself a little more. "She told me about you," he said. "About your marriage. Your history. I didn't come here to break anything, man. I came because I thought maybe, just maybe it would wake something up." I swallowed hard. "In her. In both of you." I laughed bitterly. "Well, it worked." Jamal stepped past me, still calm, still in control. "Look, David, I'm not here to pretend I'm better than you. I don't know what kind of man you are when no one's watching. But I know what I saw. A woman trying to reach you, and a man too afraid to meet her halfway." He paused at the doorway and turned back. "But now, you've seen it. No more pretending. The fire's real. What do you do with it now? That's on you." And just like that, he was gone. He left without a trace. No boast, no victory lap. Just a quiet exit. Mia came downstairs an hour later, dressed in sweats, her hair still damp. She looked at me cautiously. "Did you talk to him?" "Yeah." Her eyes searched mine. "Are you okay?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know. We sat in silence for a while. The kind that felt heavier than any fight we'd ever had. Then I said, "He told me you were asleep." Her eyes welled up. I was. And now? She hesitated. "Now I don't know if I can go back to sleep." I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my brother. Not my coworker, Chris. Not even my therapist. Some truths live too deep for words. Like an old splinter buried beneath the skin. Too painful to pull out. Too risky to leave in. Mia and I moved around the house like ghosts for the next few days. We kept our distance, like any contact might ignite what was left smoldering inside us. I went to work. She went to yoga. We smiled politely, asked if the other needed anything, and went to bed on opposite edges of the mattress. But inside, I was boiling, not just from jealousy, but from confusion, from the way Jamal had stood in my house, fully aware of what had happened, and still held his head like a man who belonged, like he owned his space. That image haunted me, so I did what I probably shouldn't have done. I looked him up. Jamal T. Rivers, 34. Born in Atlanta. Grew up in D.C., studied fine arts at Howard University. Works as a curator for a local art nonprofit that highlights minority voices. His Instagram was a blend of abstract paintings, bold photography, quotes about freedom, and occasional photos of himself. Smiling, poised, always surrounded by vibrant color and women who looked at him like he was gravity. I stared at one of his pictures. Him in a dark suit, dreadlocks neatly pulled back, standing in front of a Black Lives Matter mural with his arm draped around an older black woman. My mother. My first teacher. My roots. That's when I understood. Jamal didn't just bring a body into our bedroom. He brought a world, A culture, a history, a strength I hadn't even realized I was afraid of. He was everything I wasn't. Bold, centered, unapologetic, and black. The word lingered in my head like a forbidden note in a song. It wasn't about shame or prejudice. It was about discomfort. The kind white men like me are taught to ignore. I had grown up in the suburbs, in a family that didn't talk about race unless it was on the news. We were the color doesn't matter kind of people, which really meant we never had to see it. But now, race was sitting at the head of my marriage table, and it was wearing Jamal's smile. Mia found me one night in the study, scrolling through Jamal's art blog. She stood in the doorway, quiet. "You're obsessed," she said softly. I closed the laptop. "I'm trying to understand." She came and sat across from me, tucking her knees under her. "I didn't choose him because he's black," she said. "But I won't lie, it mattered." I stared at her. "Why?" "Because he made me feel like a woman. Like I was seen." She looked down. "And yeah, part of that came from how different he was from you. From us." Her voice broke a little. Jamal didn't ask me to tone down my voice or shrink myself to make room for his ego. He invited me to be loud, wild, free. I swallowed hard. "And I didn't." "You used to," she whispered. "But somewhere along the way, you stopped looking at me. You started managing me. Like I was another item on your to-do list." I didn't know what to say. Everything she said was true. I had loved Mia with the quiet comfort of predictability. But Jamal? He had shown her something untamed, something ancient. And now I was the outsider. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, I asked the question that had been gnawing at my soul since that night. "Did you love it?" She looked me dead in the eyes. I needed it. That hurt worse than any lie. But she wasn't done. "And I need you to stop hiding. Behind control. Behind politeness. Behind fear." I stood, pacing, trying to swallow the storm in my chest. "You think I don't feel anything?" I snapped. "You think it didn't burn to watch another man touch you?" "Then say that," she fired back. "Stop burying it in silence. Stop turning it into shame. Say it, David. Say what you feel." And for the first time in weeks, I did. I felt inferior, Mia. Like I wasn't enough. Like everything I built, my career, our house, our marriage, meant nothing because this man walks in, and you give him a piece of you I haven't seen in years. I paused, my voice cracking. And yes, part of me hated that he was black, because it made it worse. Not because I hate him, but because I couldn't compete. I knew I couldn't. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, culturally. He brought things I didn't even know were missing. Mia didn't flinch. She came up to me, slowly, and placed her hand on my chest. "You don't have to be Jamal," she said. "You just have to be you. But all of you. Not the shell. Not the mask. The man who used to laugh from his belly. Who used to make love like the world might end." I nodded slowly, tears stinging behind my eyes. We didn't fix everything that night. But for the first time, the silence cracked. And beneath it, we found a pulse. You don't forget the night your marriage breaks open. Not the kind of break that shatters. The kind that splits and shows you what's been hiding inside. After that talk with Mia, something shifted. Not magically, not completely. But we stopped pretending. No more walking past each other like strangers in our own home. No more awkward silences at the dinner table. We started talking. Really talking. We had long walks. Brutal honesty. Quiet hugs that said more than words. Sometimes it hurt like hell. Sometimes it felt like rediscovering each other through the ashes. But one thing hung in the air like a storm cloud we both refused to name. Jamal. She hadn't seen him since that night. Or at least, that's what she told me. But I knew she thought about him. I could feel it. In the way her voice paused when his name came up. In the way her eyes drifted out the window like chasing a memory. One afternoon, I came home early and found her sitting on the porch with her sketchbook, the same one she hadn't touched in 2 years. Pages filled with vibrant strokes, fire reds, and deep blues. Like emotions she couldn't speak had found color instead. "You're painting again," I said. She looked up, smiled. I needed to remember who I was before I became someone's wife. I nodded, sitting beside her. "And who is she?" I asked. She turned the page. There, on rough paper, was a sketch of a man. Broad-shouldered, dreadlocked, face half in shadow. I didn't ask if it was him. I already knew. That night, I poured myself a glass of scotch and sat in the dark with my thoughts. And I asked myself the question no husband ever wants to face. Do I love her enough to let her go? Or do I fight for her, knowing I'll never unsee what I saw? I thought back to the night Jamal walked into our house, to the way Mia glowed, to the way my heart ached and swelled all at once. There was a time when I believed love meant possession, that if you loved someone, they were yours, forever. But now, I wondered if love meant seeing someone fully and staying anyway, even if it hurt, even if the path back was messy. The next morning, I made coffee and waited for her in the kitchen. When she came in, still barefoot and sleepy-eyed, I didn't hesitate. "I've been thinking," I said, "about everything." She waited quiet. I know I opened the door that night, and I watched you walk through it. I thought I could handle it. Thought maybe it would wake something up in us. Her face tightened. "David," I shook my head gently. "Let me finish." I took a breath. What I didn't realize was that it would wake me up, that I'd see sides of you I hadn't looked at in years, that I'd have to face all the parts of myself I've ignored, my pride, my fear, my control. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm not Jamal, and I don't want to be, but I'm the man who fell in love with you at 23 when you danced barefoot in a grocery store aisle. And I want to be the man who sees you now, all of you, even the parts one don't understand." She bit her lip, tears forming. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying I want to fight for this," I said. "Not the old version of us, but the new one, the one that has scars, and truth, and pain, but also realness." She cried then. Not dramatic, not loud. Just quiet sobs, like something had been broken open inside her, too. "I want that," she whispered. "I just don't know how to get there." "We'll figure it out," I said. "Together." And we did. It took months. Therapy, late-night talks, screaming matches, silent breakfasts. But we did the work. We redefined what intimacy meant. We stopped hiding behind politeness and started being brutally honest. And yes, Jamal still existed in our story. Not as a villain, not as a fantasy, but as a turning point. He reminded us of everything we were missing. And for that, I'll always be oddly grateful. Love didn't look like what I thought it would. It wasn't neat or tidy. It wasn't just wedding vows and shared bank accounts. It was raw, unpredictable, messy, but it was real. And real, I've learned, is worth staying for. Behind closed doors, there's secrets. But sometimes there's also truth. And sometimes that truth is the only thing that can save you. That's the end.